各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。自2016年，醫療輔助死亡，俗稱安樂死，喺本國合法化。當時符合資格嘅就只有患上一啲冇辦法治癒嘅絕症患者。而2021年修訂法例，將慢性疼痛等非末期嘅身體狀況亦都納入其中。至今就已經有超過3萬多名嘅國民獲得該服務。但係有關嘅爭議喺本國卻係持續不斷。聯邦政府就喺2月初提出立法，將安樂死嘅資格擴展至患有精神疾病群體嘅計劃，延期至2024年嘅3月。咁樣就更加進一步加強對於本國醫療輔助死亡嘅擔憂同爭議。唔係卑詩省有提供安樂死服務嘅醫生以及人權慈善機構方面嘅專家，一直都企喺支持加國安樂死政策一邊，贊成長期精神病同其他不可治癒嘅疾病一樣，認為應當俾呢一類嘅患病者都有申請醫療輔助死亡嘅權利。從2月至今，圍繞住是否應該將醫療輔助死亡安樂死擴展至精神類疾病患者，明顯存在住兩種聲音。
To see it postponed for another year for people who are severely suffering, it just seemed wrong. And they're overthinking it. The provincial psychiatric associations basically said, we need more time to develop guidelines and standards. Well, they had already had 2 years. Now they got an extra year, so that'll be 3 years.
As an organization, we do not want to see discrimination and stigma attached to any group in society. And we feel that the exclusion of people who have been diagnosed with a mental disorder from being able to make a request for MAID is discriminatory and it's unconstitutional.
I think to tell someone that because they have a mental health disorder as their sole underlying condition doesn't allow them to access a legal, covered medical care in our country is probably discriminatory.
對呢一個議題持反對嘅聲音亦都同樣強烈。
We're very concerned that when you open up the floodgates of who can be killed, there'll be many people who aren't even dying, many people who can recover from what's ailing them, maybe mental, physical, both in that kind of moment in high stress situations, that they can recover. But in reality, they'll just be dead.
If MAID is the solution for people with long-term pervasive mental illness, why do we need to invest in mental health supports? We got a solution.
現年70歲嘅 Sherry Moran 係加拿大醫療輔助死亡顧問及服務協會嘅一名成員，佢都係一位深受抑鬱症困擾嘅病人。40多歲嘅時候被診斷患有抑鬱症，30年嚟一直服用抗抑鬱藥物。現時情緒獲得咗有效嘅控制。佢表示自己係幸運㗎，因為佢從未考慮過放棄自己嘅生命。但係現時每年都仲係會有深陷悲傷嘅時候。對於嗰啲同樣深陷心理疾病困擾、想尋求安樂死解脫嘅人，佢非常理解同同情。
I can't imagine being like that day after day, month after month, and even year after year. But some people don't respond to treatment. They're very, very few. But it would be horrible. That would be truly intolerable suffering.
佢亦表示，心理疾病並唔係好似一啲人所諗，通過治療或者係服用藥物就一定能夠治癒。根據 Sherry 嘅了解，佢身邊有唔少朋友，亦都長期忍受精神問題嘅痛苦。喺治療之後，情況亦都冇任何嘅改善。
He's chronic. He has tried every treatment. I believe he's even tried electroshock to deal with the symptoms of his PTSD and depression and anxiety, and it's all rolled up. He's suffering greatly.
Sherry 表示，對於反對將安樂死擴展至精神疾病嘅顧慮之一，係錯誤咁以為，如果法例一旦修改，安樂死標準就會變得寬鬆，咁會有非常多深陷精神疾病痛苦嘅人接受醫療輔助死亡。Sherry 就以其他已經開放安樂死至精神疾病多年嘅國家為例，解釋其實就算係擴展，審核標準亦都係非常謹慎嚴苛㗎。
We mainly look at the Benelux countries, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, and because they've had it for psychiatric or mental illness for a long time. And I saw in the Special Joint Committee, the Parliamentary Review report that came out last week, they quoted 95% of people who apply based on mental disorder as the sole underlying medical condition. In the Netherlands, I believe it was, 95% of them are declined. And that fits in with what I'm telling you, is that there's a lot of people out there that have mental disorders, but they would not qualify for MAID because they are simply not chronic enough. They haven't tried enough treatments. They're, there's a lot of work yet to do before they would get to that. They would meet the bar for a MAID assessment.
一直致力於提倡安樂死嘅非牟利組織 Dying with Dignity 亦都指出，對於延後更改法例令人失望。該組織董事會副主席 Susan Desjardins 表示，佢明白聯邦政府嘅顧慮，但係仲係唔理解政府將安樂死擴展期限再次延長嘅做法，認為該決定違憲。Susan 一直強調安樂死嘅標準十分嚴格，但係反對嘅人就誤以為放寬限制就等於隨意協助患者死亡。
Each individual needs to be assessed on a case-by-case basis, and the fundamental principles of access to MAID are, first, the person must have capacity to provide informed consent, and secondly, they must meet the criteria. So they have to have a grievous and irremediable condition, so illness, disease, or disability. They have to be in a state of irreversible decline, and they have to be experiencing suffering, whether physical or psychological, that's intolerable to them. We're talking about a population of individuals who have been diagnosed with a disorder, but that doesn't mean that they would necessarily be eligible for MAID. So, and we have to remember that's the case with anyone who may apply for an assisted dying. It's a choice for an individual. It's a right in Canada for them to make a request, but it's not a guarantee that they will qualify.
Susan 認為，為符合標準嘅安樂死申請者提供所需服務，等佢哋擺脫疾病痛苦，先至係幫助佢哋揾到最後嘅希望。
I am concerned that there are individuals whose hope was increased because they felt they might have access to assisted dying, even though they had a mental disorder. And I would hate to take that hope away from them.
自2016年醫療輔助死亡喺本國實施以嚟，就從事幫助符合申請資格人士執行安樂死嘅 Stephanie Green 醫生，至今佢已經輔助過超過300人走完人生最後旅程。佢表示自己亦都曾經被質疑，身為醫生本來應當救死扶傷。佢對於自己嘅職業就有以下嘅睇法。
I really think the role of a physician and a clinician is to help people. I think that the illness, the condition that's causing this person's end of life, that's what's killing the person. That's what's ending their life. My role is really to facilitate their final wish. To be able to be in that position to grant them that final wish is what I'm doing. And in that role, I feel like I'm really helping someone. I feel a tremendous amount of gratitude from my patients and from their families. And that's really the role that I see that I'm fulfilling.
佢更加係撰寫咗一本名為《This is Assisted Dying》，這是輔助死亡一書，咁講述咗醫生喺病患生命盡頭所賦予佢哋嘅權利。
It is, of course, very sad when someone's life is ending. It can be very tragic, but at the same time, there is an opportunity for closure and for beautiful sentiments of love at the end of life. And so it's a complex issue, and I want people to really see it for what it is.
佢認為，如果剝奪患有精神類疾病患者實現解脫，咁樣係唔道德以及帶有歧視性㗎。
Do I think it's complicated? Yes. Do I think we need to be careful about a potentially vulnerable population? Yes. Do I think a number of people will come through that maybe are curious about it but certainly won't qualify? Yes. But do I think that there are people, rare as they may be, with long-standing suffering, who've tried a number of treatments, who simply can't be helped, who are suffering intolerably, and who in this country have the right to be considered for an assisted death? Yes.
對於外界有聲音質疑本國醫生對於評估精神類患者安樂死資格並冇任何了解同埋經驗 ，Stephanie Green 醫生就加以反駁。
The clinicians in this country have experience with this patient population. We are already assessing voluntariness, capacity to make this decision, the influence of their mental health disorders. It's not like we don't have experience with this patient population. What we're looking at in the future is when that's the only issue. And that is, feeling slightly different, but it's not like we don't have any experience.
下一節返嚟就等我哋去聽聽反對將安樂死範疇進一步放寬嘅聲音，以及佢哋對此有啲乜嘢顧慮。歡迎返嚟節目時間。唔係溫哥華本地有臨終關懷機構一直都反對政府強制要求呢一類嘅關懷機構必須跟隨衛生當局嘅指引，為居住者提供醫療輔助死亡嘅選擇。咁佢哋認為安樂死同臨終關懷嘅理論相違背。而本地亦都有學者對於本國嘅安樂死資格越嚟越放寬，表達非常擔憂。營運30多年嘅三角洲臨終關懷協會一直致力於為患病者提供寧靜安詳嘅善終服務。主席 Angelina Ireland 一直反對為病患者提供安樂死，佢認為安樂死違背咗臨終關懷嘅概念。
MAID, medical assistance in dying, is not part of palliative care because palliative care helps people with chronic illness to live well until their natural end. So you see, the two are really flying conflict with one another.
Angelina Ireland 亦都提及三角洲善終協會過去同政府之間嘅一段糾紛。咁喺2021年，該協會由於唔願意接受政府安排提供安樂死服務，非洲衛生局就取消同協會嘅服務協議，咁以及佢哋所營運嘅善終服務設施地皮嘅35年嘅租借合約。咁省衛生廳喺2021年嘅2月宣布，由於協會未能夠遵守省府臨終醫療援助政策，而取消對協會嘅資助。而協會位於三角洲，包括 Irene Thomas 臨終關懷中心在內嘅所有設施就歸政府所有。
As a palliative care organization, we fundraised about $9 million to build the facilities. We got a 30-year lease with the government, and we operated our hospice with a government contract, right? So in effect, it was a public-private partnership that was very successful for about 10 years. When MAID was introduced, the government insisted that we provide that procedure. And as a palliative care organization, we were very committed to affirming that, in fact, palliative care does not include MAID. So in response, the government canceled our contract. So with one of the buildings that we did build was a 7,500 square foot supportive care center. And now, so we have gone from that to this little office that we're here now, right now, trying to run the programming of the society. This office is probably not even 300 square feet. But, for us to make that stand for the people of Canada in defense of palliative care, it was worth it. Oh, this one's brand new. Yeah. Oh, this is a lovely dress, eh?
Very pretty.
Great.
現時協會不得不轉型，從營運臨終關懷設施改為倡導教育機構，俾公眾了解臨終關懷嘅重要意義，並且提供資源。
Oh, nice. That's excellent. Oh, nice. That's great.
協會目前喺三角洲運作慈善舊貨店，維持佢哋有關臨終關懷嘅服務以及倡導工作。採訪之中，佢一再強調唔想過多評論醫療輔助死亡嘅好與壞。佢所擔憂嘅係，隨住政府對安樂死制度越嚟越寬鬆，甚至要求善終關懷設施亦都要提供醫療輔助死亡服務。但係對於嗰啲唔願意接受安樂死嘅患者嚟講，佢哋能夠獲得傳統嘅善終服務就越嚟越受到限制。 對於明年本國可能放寬安樂死資格至到患有長期精神類疾病嘅患者，Angelina 亦都有自己嘅擔憂。佢認為，如果明年3月安樂死修正立法通過，將會係非常令人擔心嘅事情。
We're very concerned that when you open up the floodgates of who can be killed, there'll be many people who aren't even dying, many people who can recover from what's ailing them, maybe mental, physical, both in that kind of moment in high stress situations, that they can recover. But in reality, they'll just be dead.
現時安樂死資格已經放寬至患有殘障疾病嘅特定群體。對此 ，Angelina 亦覺得政府嘅決定相對草率，並冇為公眾解決根本問題。
We've seen people within the disability community, people who are poor, being mated. I don't really think that's their choice. I think this is a desperation. And this is the situation where we have to be very careful.
與此同時 ，Angelina 亦都提出一個觀點。佢個人認為，之所以政府積極推廣並擴展醫療輔助死亡，係有削減護理成本嘅考慮。
Death is cheap, okay? Palliative care is expensive. We know that the medical system is virtually broke. This is not news to anybody. We know that. We know that the premiers have been begging the federal government to give them money because, economically the medical system is it's in very dire straits. We had our hospice. We know that it costs about $1,200 a day to take care of someone. It costs probably $200 en masse to kill someone. So we don't need to be naive. We understand. We understand what's happening here, right? And again, people need to be protected when the economic situation is dire.
對於未來本國可能將患有精神類疾病患者納入醫療輔助死亡嘅範疇，比斯大學社會工作系教授，同時亦都係加拿大包容與公民研究所所長嘅 Tim Stanton， 佢亦都存在相同嘅擔憂，並且提出3點顧慮。
The main objection is that the law basically says that the mental illness would have to be irremediable, so it couldn't be fixed. There was no treatment available, and it was going to be permanent and long term. And basically, the at best, the literature suggests that there's a very strong division on whether that's possible to ever determine that. On the other hand, the safe view is that you can never actually determine that someone will never get better. Sort of new treatments, changes in environment, new medication that's available, so that to be able to say someone will never actually improve is not actually possible. So you risk euthanizing someone who may in fact have gotten better and had some quality of life in the future. So that's the main argument against it.
佢亦都認為身體殘障、精神健康危機都唔可能係單一問題存在，令到人尋求安樂死，而係同其他社會因素有直接聯繫，咁令到患者喺身心俱疲嘅情況之下，仲要面對社會多重嘅問題，而導致最終對生活絕望，先至會選擇安樂死。因此佢認為政府應該着手解決嘅係社會問題，而唔係進一步擴展安樂死範疇。
For many people, mental illness also goes along with a lot of social suffering, poverty and lack of housing, addictions. So there's concerns that those factors may lead to them seeking being approved for MAID.
佢以早前被廣泛報導嘅溫哥華島男子 Sean Taggart 作為例子，佢認為如果呢一名深陷肌萎縮硬化症嘅父親當時能夠獲得所需嘅護理服務同資金， 令到佢能夠同11歲嘅兒子喺同一屋檐下居住。最終41歲嘅佢未必會喺2019年選擇以安樂死結束生命。
He needed the health authority to provide home support, and they have a cap on that, how many hours you can get. So it got to the point where he needed more support, and the health authority would only allow him, only offer him institutionalization in basically a long-term care facility for older people. His main reason for living was he had a son that he wanted to spend as much time as he possibly could before he passed away with. And of course, that's not possible in a long-term care home. So because he couldn't get the support to stay in his own home and be with his son, he opted for medical assistance in dying and was very clear about that. He's doing this because I'm being forced into an institution, not because I'm ready to die.
除此之外，Tim Stanton 教授亦都提出，本國對於輔助精神疾病患者嘅資源並唔係十分完善。佢擔心安樂死一旦擴展至精神疾病患者，會令到一部分人喺冇獲得有效治療之前，就為其提供醫療輔助性死亡。
We know that the mental health system in Canada is in crisis. I mean, the Senate said that, everybody said that you can't open the paper without reading that it's virtually impossible to access timely and appropriate mental health care. So in a situation like that, can we actually say that something is irremediable when in fact it may be that they just haven't been able to access the kind of care they want?
根據民意調查公司 Angus Reid 喺今年2月中嘅一項最新調查顯示，加國嘅公眾普遍支持現有嘅安樂死政策，佔61%。但係就只有31%嘅國民支持將其擴展至精神疾病患者。有51%嘅人就對此表示反對。對此 ，Tim Stanton 教授就表示，民意結果正好反映咗公眾並冇從政府獲得有關安樂死政策最真實透明嘅認知，但係就急於將立法擴張。
So basically, Canadians were kept in the dark, and now that when they actually know what's being proposed, they say, hey, wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for. Because most people in Canada are supportive of MAID in what most of us think it is, which is for people at the very end of life who don't want to go through those last weeks or months with cancer, or that would prefer not to go through that end of life stage. That generally is accepted by Canadians and much less problematic. But Canada's laws are well beyond that now and going faster. We're on the verge of becoming the most permissive jurisdiction for euthanasia in the world. We're already have the highest per capita use of euthanasia in the world. We've surpassed the Netherlands and Belgium, countries that have done this for over 20 years. We're already past their numbers in terms of per capita MAID deaths.
對於聯邦政府有意喺明年將安樂死擴展至精神類疾病，佢就表示唔理解。
Their own law to expand to address the reasonable foreseeable death specifically excluded mental illness. So why is it a year ago they were saying they were going to exclude it, and now all of a sudden they have no choice? So it's actually just misinformation from the government. They absolutely can choose not to do this with no legal concerns whatsoever. So, but they are pushing the message that they don't have a choice, which is absolutely false.
對於呢一個議題，我哋亦都嘗試聯絡卑斯衛生廳，想了解卑斯省政府就聯邦政府有意擴大安樂死法例嘅睇法。省衛生廳長未有接受訪問，但就發出聲明表示，會盡可能確保公眾對於安樂死制度嘅安全及信心。而聯邦政府對於該立法嘅延遲，為省府提供更多時間為修正立法作出準備。其中就包括制定額外嘅保障措施，以確保患者能夠安全咁、適當咁獲得醫療輔助性死亡嘅服務，並且謹慎實踐標準，確保從業者對評估進行審慎研究。 好啦，今集嘅節目時間呢又差唔多啦。咁如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。我哋嘅電郵地址係 mag26@fairchildtv.com。咁如果觀眾咧想上網重溫翻今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站3w.fairchildtv.com， 點擊節目重溫一欄就可以睇得翻㗎啦。下星期同樣時間再同大家見面，晚安。